I'm Olivia, 29 years old, raised in a red brick house at the end of White Pine Drive in Greenville, South Carolina. From the outside, everyone assumed I was part of a model family, my father a renowned neurosurgeon, my mother a corporate attorney once dubbed the Queen of the Courtroom by Southern Council magazine, and my older brother Noah, 3 years my senior forever, the shining star of the Mitchells. He followed the exact path my parents designed, straight A student, pre-med at Duke University, and an impressive internship at Mayo Clinic. And me, I was the agreeable child, quiet, unproblematic, always smiling at dinner, even when I was invisible. My childhood was a series of long dinner conversations that revolved around Noah's academic success and medical aspirations. My dad often started with, "So, what did my son accomplish today?" Noah would talk about a complex surgery he observed or a flawless anatomy essay he submitted. My mother would beam with pride. When it was my turn, I'd simply say I just finished designing a trial interface for a homework automation tool. My mother would pause mid-bite, glance at me over her wine glass, and reply in that soft, sharp-edged tone, "Sounds interesting. But I thought you were preparing for debate team. Top schools really value consistency in extracurriculars." Consistency. That word echoed through my entire upbringing. In my house, it meant choosing a gold standard career: doctor, lawyer, financial engineer. Programmer, that was just another name for kids who stare at screens all day playing video games. I started teaching myself to code at 14. It began with HTML and CSS Basic, but enough to create a recipe-sharing website for my classmates. Then came Python, then JavaScript. Every line of code was my escape from a world where my voice never seemed to matter. I stayed up until 2 or 3 in the morning sneaking through online forums and tech documents, only to wake up and pretend to be excited about reading financial case briefs from my mother. At 16, I wrote a simple software tool that helped my school's Spring Festival organizers manage booths, assign volunteers, and track finances. It cut prep time in half compared to the year before. The faculty sponsor called my mom, telling her I had real talent. She simply laughed and replied, "Oh, she's smart, no doubt. But she's scattered. We're steering her toward law. It's more practical and stable." I had been standing behind the kitchen door. I heard every word. I didn't cry, didn't lash out, just went numb. From that moment on, I stopped sharing what I was working on. No more talk about programming projects, no showing off the sleek apps I built for mobile, no mention of the AI problem I solved after my entire computer science group gave up. I became just enough in their eyes, a decent student, obedient, non-disruptive. My bedroom became the only place I could breathe freely. My desk was crowded with sticky notes, data flow charts, UI sketches, and messy printouts of code from an old inkjet printer. I remember once when I was testing the first version of a heart rate monitor, app I coded using JavaScript, and a phone sensor, Noah happened to walk in. He glanced at my screen, raising an eyebrow. "What's that, a new game?" I pressed my lips together. "No. It's a heart rate tracker. It detects anomalies." He nodded absent-mindedly. You should probably focus on your GPA. Schools don't care what you're coding." That was the period at the end of my sentence. When Noah got a full ride to med school, the family threw a party at the Southern Oak, a restaurant you had to book a month in advance. That same week, my little software project had been selected as a finalist in a statewide innovation competition. I didn't mention it. That evening, as everyone raised their glasses to celebrate the pride of the Mitchell family, I smiled politely, then retreated to my room, opened my laptop, and continued refining the back end of an app that would later rewrite the course of my life. But they never knew. They never asked. When I got the email saying I had won first place in the statewide coding competition for South Carolina, I stared at the screen for a few seconds, my heart pounding like someone knocking on my ribcage. My project, a warehouse management software for community food banks, had beaten out over 300 submissions from high schools across the state. The judges praised its practicality and the efficiency of my data retrieval algorithm. I didn't tell anyone at home. Until Ms. Ramirez, my computer science teacher, called our house on a Wednesday afternoon. I was reorganizing the bookshelf in my room when I heard Mom in the kitchen. "What award?" she asked, suspicion thick in her voice. There was a pause. Then she spoke again, tone cool and dismissive, like she was being invited to an elementary school recital. "Thank you for letting us know. But this Saturday, we're throwing a party for our son's acceptance into med school. Both sides of the family will be there. Olivia won't be able to attend." I froze, book still in my hand. It wasn't disappointment. It felt more like having a door slammed shut just as my fingers reached the handle. That night, while Noah basked in handshakes and praise from a living room full of relatives, I sat alone in my bedroom, wearing a worn-out hoodie, staring at the invitation to the awards ceremony, that mess Ramirez had handed me that morning. I already knew if I didn't go, no one in my family would notice. I folded the invitation card, placed it inside the box of electronic components, then opened my laptop and continued rewriting the script for the payment system we were integrating into an app I was co-developing with a fellow student named Maya, who lived all the way out in Raleigh. We'd met on a tech forum. In my head, one thought kept repeating, I won't wait to be invited anymore. I'll walk in on my own. The summer of senior year, while my classmates were applying to Ivy League schools for prestigious majors like economics, medicine, or political science, I chose Illinois Tech, a school offering full scholarships to female students in computer science. I spent weeks preparing my portfolio, writing essays, and sending out recommendation letters. My mom didn't find out until the scholarship letter arrived at our house. "Illinois Tech," she frowned, tapping the envelope lightly. "Sounds like a trade school." It's one of the top engineering schools in the Midwest. They have direct partnerships with major tech firms, and the faculty are seasoned industry professionals. But your SAT scores are good enough for Cornell or Brown. Why would you pick this? My dad lowered his newspaper. Cutting in tech is just a trend. In a few years, I will take over everything, and you'll be out of a job. You think we raised you for 18 years just to hear you say you want to be a freelance coder? I'm not freelancing. I want to build products that solve real-world problems. I've already started, and I believe I can go further in the right environment. My mom crossed her arms, her gaze sharper than in any courtroom she's ever stood in. You're wasting your potential. You could be a great lawyer. You speak well, you write well, you think critically. This is just rebellion. I clenched my fists, but kept my voice steady. I'm not rebelling. I'm choosing what I really want to do, not to defy anyone. The air in the room felt sealed shut. Noah, sitting nearby with a fruit plate, glanced at me and looked away like the conversation didn't concern him. I didn't wait any longer. That night, I logged into Illinois Tech's website, accepted the scholarship, signed the enrollment agreement, and booked a flight. The day I left Greenville, rain had been falling steadily since early morning. Noah drove me to the airport, not because anyone asked him to, but because he was the only one free. The nearly 2-hour ride was mostly silent. As I was wheeling my suitcase into the terminal, he scratched his head awkwardly. "Olivia. Anyway, good luck. Hope that school doesn't disappoint you." I turned to him. His face didn't look mocking, just confused. "I don't need your hope. I just need no one to hold me back." I walked straight through the security checkpoint, never looking back. The plane took off. I looked out the window, watching rooftops shrink and vanish into gray clouds. It didn't feel like running away. The East Women's dorm at Illinois Tech was so old that every time I turned on the hot water, the pipes screeched like they were waking from decades of sleep. I moved in that August, just before Chicago's signature winds rolled in. My room was barely 130 square feet, just enough for a single bed, a desk, and a bookshelf. But that tiny space became the birthplace of an idea no one in my family could have imagined. It all started in a class called Applied Algorithms in Health Data Analysis. The instructor, Professor Elkins, was a tall man with platinum hair who never wore the same pair of shoes 2 days in a row. I sat in the third row taking notes when a voice behind me whispered, "You're coding like it's 2005. Fixed block logic in section 4, it's way under-optimized." I turned. A brown-skinned girl wearing circuit-shaped earrings and a gray hoodie with the phrase "zero downtime" smiled at me. Emma Rodriguez. Back-end systems have kept me up for 3 nights straight. Totally worth it, though. That's how we started. Not with small talk, but debugging each other's code every evening in the library. We fit together seamlessly. I built the front end, Emma optimized back-end operations. Both of us had been dismissed by family for choosing tech over a stable career. That common ground bonded us more than words. One winter night with snow piling outside and the library's heater broken, Emma pulled out her phone and showed me an article about a terminal cancer patient who had been prescribed the wrong meds due to miscommunication between doctor and nurse. The healthcare system is so outdated it can't even do its most basic job, conveying information, she sighed, voice dropping. My mom was misdiagnosed with lupus for 2 years. 3 hospitals. 4 doctors. No one remembered her past records. What if we created a real-time medical communication platform where doctors, nurses, and patients could all update records simultaneously? I blurted out. She looked at me, said nothing for a few seconds, then nodded. We sketched the idea on napkins, drew flowcharts on whiteboards in empty classrooms. We called it Synapse, the neural bridge of healthcare. We built the prototype in Emma's dad's garage in North Lawndale. Her aunt would sometimes bring us pizza and gently place hot tea next to my laptop. No questions, just quiet encouragement. That April, Synapse entered the university's internal startup competition. We won most applicable concept and received $1,500, just enough to buy a domain, rent cloud servers, and print some cheap business cards. From then on, every break between classes, every weekend night, every campus holiday, we coded, redesigned, restructured, debugged. I worked on an old Ubuntu laptop with a half-dead battery. Emma on a mechanical keyboard she bought secondhand from a disbanded club. We shared everything: GitHub passwords, cold sandwiches. On freezing nights, Emma typed with gloves on one finger at a time. I held a coffee cup like a makeshift heater in my lap. By June, we submitted our application to the Illinois statewide Health Startup Challenge. 137 teams entered. 3 made the finals. Synapse was one of them. We walked into the auditorium for the final pitch, facing a judging panel made up entirely of hospital executives. Emma presented the back-end mechanics. I demoed the live interface. When we finished, the room went silent. Then one clap. Then another. Then the whole auditorium. A week later, we got a call from Jackson Memorial Hospital near Joliet. They wanted to pilot Synapse in their outpatient clinics. That same day, we filed our LLC paperwork and officially named the platform PulseBridge, because in medicine, everything begins with a heartbeat. I sent a message to my mom, today, I just signed a tech pilot contract with a major hospital. I'm no longer just the girl who's good with computers. I'm doing something that matters. No reply. I wasn't surprised. That night, Emma and I sat on the garage roof, eating cup noodles under the stars. They don't have to understand, she said, raising her noodles like a toast. We just need to make the world understand. I tapped mine gently against hers. No bitterness inside me. Just one thing, a firm belief that I was going the right way even if no one walked beside me. At that point, PulseBridge was still just the 2 of us. No office. No salaries. No funding. But it had something irreplaceable, a fire that no one could put out. I came home for Thanksgiving not because I had time, but because my parents had called 3 times in a week, just to say, don't be absent. The whole family from Georgia will be there. The bus from Chicago to Greenville rolled past rows of bare pine trees, the sky a faded silver gray like one of Mom's old kitchen cloths. I wore a thick coat, a dark knit beanie, and zipped my collar all the way up, hoping I'd look forgettable enough walking into that house. Dinner was hosted at my aunt's mom's sister. Everyone sat around a long table covered in red velvet cloth, porcelain plates, set with the precision of a live-streamed banquet. I stepped in. A few glances, then they turned away. Noah stood in the corner talking about a trauma case he'd handled the week before at Cedars-Sinai. Mom stood nearby, her face lit with pride. "Olivia, haven't seen you in ages," Aunt Lorna called out, pulling me toward the table. "Still at that IT thing, right? What do you do again? Fix computers or something? I'm currently developing a software platform for communication within healthcare systems. Oh, like an internal hotline or customer service chatbot." I gave a small nod. I didn't correct her. Not because I was hiding anything, but because they weren't really asking. Throughout the meal, the same questions echoed like a broken chorus. "Olivia, you should try applying to Apple. I know someone there. IBM's hiring interns. I saw it in the paper. Ever thought about getting an MB, maybe become a product manager? Don't just stick to the technical stuff." No one asked what PulseBridge was. No one knew that the platform was already live in 12 hospitals and had helped reduce internal communication errors in healthcare by 27% in the last quarter. I gave polite, concise answers. Not short, not long. I didn't want the gathering to turn into a concept pitch where people only listened for an opening to toss in another comment. When Noah raised his glass, Mom leaned toward me and whispered, "Next weekend, we're going to Aunt Eve's. Mr. Winters, Sophia's dad, will be there. He has a daughter who's a director at some health tech company, Horizon or Horizon Tech, something like that. I'll introduce you. Maybe they'll have a suitable internship." I slowly set my knife down. "I'm not job hunting. I just mean for your future. It's good to have a plan, right?" I looked at her. Her face hadn't changed, sharp eyes, slightly pursed lips, all perfectly composed. But behind that calm was a solid belief I still wasn't doing okay. After dinner, while everyone moved to the living room for coffee and pecan pie, I opened my phone. A string of emails had just come in from our lawyer. Horizon Health was offering a $12 million Series B investment valuing PulseBridge at $85 million. I skimmed the term sheet and placed the phone back down. It felt like sitting between two worlds, both moving in opposite directions. Noah walked by and paused. "Olivia, Sophia's thinking about starting a research project on AI-assisted diagnostics. Sounds like your field. I can connect you if you'd like." "I don't need a connection. No pressure. I just thought you might be looking for something more real." I smiled softly. "Just because I don't say, it doesn't mean I haven't done anything." He stood silent, then gave my shoulder a familiar pat, the kind I'd seen too many times at Noah's award ceremonies, where I stood on the sidelines. On the way back, I passed the old church row where I'd once attended summer Sunday school. Nostalgia came not for sweet memories, but for the unsettling quiet of years spent defined by invisibility. Back in my Chicago apartment, I opened my laptop and logged into the PulseBridge dashboard. Hundreds of new logins. Doctor and nurse forums buzzing with updates. A hospital in Tennessee had just requested a custom API integration. I sat quietly for a moment, then joined a video call with Emma. "They still think I'm some tech assistant," I said, sipping cold tea. "That's fine. Makes it more fun when they find out." I looked straight at the camera. "It's not that I want to keep it a secret. I just don't want them measuring me with the old ruler." Emma didn't answer right away. She submitted the draft investment contract to our internal portal, then said, "Then let the world's new ruler define your value." That evening, Chicago shimmered in gold as the last of the sunlight faded across the river. I parked near Clarendon, where Noah and Sophia were hosting their engagement party, and sat in the car a moment longer. My phone still displayed Emma's message. Horizon just sent the final term sheet. $215 million. If all goes well, announcement next week. I turned off the screen, looking at my reflection in the glass. Wearing a square neck, black dress hair tied low lips in a cold crimson shade, neither too bold nor too modest. Just enough that no one could guess I was the woman leading the biggest digital health investment round of the year. Inside, Clarendon crystal lights shimmered across wine glasses like little amber stones. Guests gathered around the buffet table, voices blending with soft jazz in the background. Noah noticed me first. He walked over, his confident smile just slightly strained. "Olivia, perfect timing. Sophia's been wanting to meet you. She stood near the window wearing pearl earrings and holding a glass of Prosecco. Her eyes brightened when she saw me. Finally we meet, she said, extending her hand. I've heard a lot about you from Noah. Hope it's the good stuff. Mostly. The rest I'll judge for myself. I chuckled politely, then turned to accept a cocktail from a passing server. The party unfolded exactly how my mother had always dreamed: guests from the medical field, friends from Noah's med school days, and a few relatives from the East Coast invited by my father for the sake of appearances. I was seated next to a cousin who worked in finance and spent a full 10 minutes asking me about career paths that suit unmarried women. As I tried to chew a tasteless bite of salad, I felt someone's gaze locking onto me. I looked up. Sophia was staring across the table, her brow slightly furrowed. Olivia, she hesitated. You said you worked in health tech, right? I nodded. Yes. Is it true that you're Olivia Mitchell, the CEO of Pulsabridge? The room fell silent. Noah turned toward me, a slight frown forming. Pulsabridge? You mean the company Horizon? Is Sophia didn't let him finish. She turned to me, clearly struggling to keep her usual professional composure. I've been leading the negotiation deal with Pulsabridge. But all the documents were signed by Olivia M. No photo, no personal bio. I never imagined. I set my fork down and looked up calmly. Yes, that's me. A faint gasp came from my mother's direction. My father's wineglass froze midair. Noah sat motionless, stunned. You built that platform from the ground up? Sophia asked, again softer now, without the usual pride of a strategy executive. I nodded again. Since college. With a former roommate. No one said a word. Even the music seemed to fade into the background. Sophia finally spoke, this time with visible awe and respect. Pulsabridge ranks among the top 3 platforms that improved hospital internal efficiency this year. I thought the founders would be ex-pharma execs or physicians turned tech entrepreneurs. I never expected it to be you. Sometimes the unexpected is the only thing powerful enough to change everything. I stood up. No reason to stay longer. If you'll excuse me, I said quietly. I think everyone needs a few minutes to digest the news more than the meal. I walked out of the banquet hall into utter silence. The glass door closed behind me, reflecting the lights and stunned faces. As I reached the parking lot, my phone buzzed. A message from Sophia: I hope to work with you officially. And if you don't mind, I'd love to buy you a coffee. Nothing business related, just out of admiration. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then smiled faintly. Not because of the message, but because now, no one would ever need to ask. So, what is it you do again? The Elmwood restaurant sat tucked under bare chestnut trees on a cobblestone street in the northern part of the city. I arrived right on time. My parents were already seated in the corner where natural light slanted across untouched croissants and steaming cups of coffee. My mother adjusted her napkin, trying to appear relaxed, but her fingers gripped the coffee cup handle with that familiar need for control. My father spoke first, his tone deep and short. Thank you for coming. I nodded. You messaged so many times I figured if I didn't come, I'd get a letter from the family lawyer next. No smile from him. My mother pressed her lips together. Olivia, she began, then stopped, as if every word she had rehearsed suddenly felt wrong. We need to talk honestly. I leaned back in my chair. Then go ahead. She looked at me, her eyes caught between pride and unease. I read all the articles. About Pulsabridge. About how your platform reduces medical errors. About the investment from Horizon. You've done something incredible, something we never imagined. Because no one ever listened. My father placed his hand on the table, his voice heavy. It's not that we didn't care. We just didn't think it would go this far. Didn't think, or didn't want to believe, I interrupted, trying to keep my tone even. I told you. I sent demos. I invited you to competitions. And all I got was, when will you get a real job? No reply. You never saw me as someone worth betting on because I wasn't like Noah. Everything I pursued was dismissed as a phase I continued. But no one asked why I did it. No one noticed the sleepless nights. No one called to ask if I was okay when our startup nearly collapsed that first year. My mother looked down. I thought you were just rebelling against us. No. I just wanted to be seen for who I really am. The silence thickened, like a sealed room with no air. Sounds from the nearby tables, clinking utensils, soft laughter, felt distant from another world. My father took a sip of coffee and sighed. We were wrong. No denying it. But you have to understand we were worried about you. Tech is a brutal industry. We only wanted stability for you. By dismissing everything I was good at, I looked straight at them. No flinching. No backing down. The truth is, I didn't grow up in a household that inspired me. I grew up in a household that redirected me. Everything I did was weighed against someone else's measure. I didn't succeed because you pushed me. You didn't push me forward. You just pushed me away. A long pause. Outside the window, a breeze stirred the last few clinging leaves until they trembled on the verge of falling. My mother clasped her hands tightly in her lap. I missed it. I judged wrong. But I want to make it right, even if it's late. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table. This is the real-time dashboard for PulseBridge. 287 hospitals are using it. Every time a doctor updates a patient record, the platform analyzes the data, flags medication conflicts, recommends better care paths, and alerts for missing information. A life can depend on lines of code you once called a game. My mom stayed quiet. My dad silently stared at the phone, eyes fixed on the continuously updating data feed. I'm not telling you all this to demand anything back. I'm not asking for a late apology. I just need the truth to be put in its rightful place. The server brought out dessert. No one touched it. Then my mom spoke, her voice softer than usual, as if she herself was surprised by what she was about to say. Would you be willing to show me how to try out that platform? Not because I'll understand everything, but because I want to understand a piece of your world? I looked at her, a little longer this time, then nodded. If you really want to learn, I'll teach you. Brunch ended without a reconciliatory hug. No tears. No grand forgiveness. But walking out of that restaurant, I noticed the tightness in my chest had eased. Jason showed up at my apartment on a Sunday afternoon with a bottle of red wine and a box of ginger cookies he claimed were homemade, but not guaranteed to be edible. He stood at the door, coat still on, looking at me like he was waiting for permission to step into a world he had never truly understood. I opened the door a little wider. Come in. The kitchen doesn't bite. He chuckled, set the bag down on the kitchen island, and looked around the dark wood walls, the large screen displaying PulseBridge's real-time dashboard system diagrams pinned behind the sofa. This place is a lot different than I imagined. I poured the wine. That's because you only ever imagined it. You never asked. Jason nodded, no protest. We sat down. The silence was deep enough that the ticking clock sounded loud. Are you mad? He asked. I figure you are. And I deserve it. I shook my head. I used to be. But not because you succeeded. It's because every gaze in our house assumed I was just your shadow. You didn't create that, but you never paused to see how much it cost me. He leaned back, exhaling like he was letting go of a burden. I was raised to believe that doing things right earned you praise. And you were always fine, quiet, self-sufficient. I didn't think you needed someone to listen. I was wrong. I set my wineglass down. I didn't need someone to hold me up. But listening isn't a privilege. It's respect. Jason rested his elbows on his knees, eyes drifting toward the window. Outside, the sky was turning pale gray, no snow yet, but the chill of December hung in the air. Sophia talks about you a lot. You surprised her in a way most people can't. She said the first time she saw the platform's demo, she thought whoever made this definitely isn't normal, meaning too smart to be ordinary. I let out a soft laugh. Yeah, I'm definitely not normal. I used to tape code snippets on my bedroom wall instead of pop star posters. There was a time I thought you'd quit halfway. Even when Mom said you were just exploring a phase, I believed her. But now if you're open to it, I want to learn. Not out of curiosity, but because I think you deserve to be understood, not just seen. I didn't answer right away. Something inside me quieted, not quite forgiveness, but not a wall either. You could start by signing up for the PulseBridge demo. It's user-friendly even for sleep-deprived doctors. He laughed out loud. Great, but I'll need A for dummies who failed basic programming manual. We clinked glasses. No dramatic monologue. No drawn-out apologies. But in his eyes, I saw something real change. 3 weeks later, Sophia texted me asking to meet for lunch, just the two of us. She picked a small riverside cafe with paper lanterns hanging even in daylight. I wanted to say thank you, she began as the main course was placed in front of us. Not for working with me, but for changing how my future in-laws see tech. I raised an eyebrow. That sounds like an impossible mission. Sophia smiled, resting her chin on her hand, her gaze both gentle and sharp. Noah's mom started reading books about startups. I gave her Tech Founders Under 35, and she finished it in 2 nights. Last week, she asked me what's a cap table, and Noah, he's thinking of emailing your dev team about integrating PulseBridge with endoscopic cameras. You should probably ask PulseBridge for an internal communications consultant fee. I'll consider it. But really what makes me happiest is they don't see you as the daughter who strayed anymore. They're starting to call you the brave one. That means a lot in their world. I glanced at my tea. Condensation trailed down the glass. It's not about craving recognition. It's knowing that sometimes change doesn't happen when people bow their heads, but when they finally look up in the right direction. That evening my mom called. Her voice was steady, though slightly hesitant. I'm reading a study about the impact of real-time data on rapid diagnostics. It mentioned PulseBridge. I didn't understand all of it, but it was interesting. I was surprised. Where'd you find that the health section in Medical Horizons Weekly? There was a QR code to a demo version. I made an account, just to look around. I leaned back in my chair, smiling. Need any tech support? I'm waiting for Sophia to come over for dinner. She might help. But if you have time, I'd like to hear it from you. The call ended with one short sentence, I'm trying. I turned off the screen and leaned my head back against the chair, the light from the window casting a soft glow on the white wall. Words alone can't fix everything. But each small step, each subtle sign, each clumsy attempt, they deserve to be acknowledged, just as much as any triumph. In March, as the snow melted and Chicago woke from its long winter, I began hosting a series of STEM workshops for high school girls. The first one took place in a small auditorium at a West Side community center, formerly an old bookstore that had been renovated. 27 young faces, most of them Black, Latina, or Asian, sat in a circle around a cluster of makeshift wooden tables. They had never heard of PulseBridge. All they knew was that this was a place where they could learn to code something useful. Do I have to be good at math? One curly-haired girl with thick glasses asked, as I walked them through a basic script for building a patient feedback form. I shook my head and smiled. You just need to be curious, and patient enough to get it wrong 100 times without giving up. Eyes lit up. After class, one girl stayed behind, quietly staring at the whiteboard I had just wiped clean. Mrs. Olivia, my mom's a nurse in the ER. Last week, there was a bad reaction because the doctor didn't read the full record. She came home crying. I think if your software had existed sooner, maybe that patient could have been saved. Her words sliced clean through the silence. There's nothing more powerful than a truth that doesn't need applause. I handed her the trial circuit board from the table, placing it in her hands. Then learn well, and keep building it for others. I left the center when it was already dark, holding a takeout box the girls had put together for me using their small class fund. A paper bag with a messy marker note read, "Thank you for showing us we can create something big too." 2 months later, I accepted a mentor position in SeedSpark Startup Accelerator. My team was made up of 3 female students from Iowa with an idea to detect early signs of depression through social media behavior. They had no experience in fundraising, had never written a formal proposal, but their eyes burned with drive. I reviewed their pitch deck close to midnight. Clumsy visuals, loosely connected logic, but real potential. I opened my laptop and typed to Emma, "This group is one to watch." Feels like when we started confused but stubborn. She replied with a smile, emoji and a photo of the office printer, jammed proof that not everything in the startup world is as shiny as the headlines make it seem. The next morning, I walked into Pulsebridge's main office. The glass building overlooking the river bore my name on a 10-year lease, but I still drove in with my old car part because I no longer had anything to prove. Kayla, my assistant, handed me the guest list for the annual healthcare conference in Denver. Sophia would represent Horizon. Emma was leading a session on patient behavior data. I'd been asked to deliver the keynote. "They want you to speak on the future of smart healthcare. I think you should talk about how you used to code in your garage," Kyla said, eyes still on her screen. Sounds weird enough to be inspiring. I smiled. If I do, I'll talk about how a woman's confidence doesn't come from applause, but from silent nights lit only by a glowing screen. Saturday evening, Jason and Sophia came by. He brought over a lopsided tart that looked questionable for digestion, but I ate a small piece not to hurt the pride of a man trying to apologize through actions. Mom just sent me a photo of her startup notebook. Lately, she's been asking me the difference between seed funding and a bridge round. I panicked a little. Sophia laughed. Jason tilted his head. "I'm still trying to remember what a PI stands for." I slid the plate aside, my voice as soft as the breeze outside. "You don't have to understand it all. Just understand that the Mitchell daughter didn't waste her potential, like they once thought. No one thinks that anymore." I took a sip of tea. Said nothing. Didn't have to. Mom's calls, Dad forwarding articles asking for my thoughts, it all said enough. That night, I sat by the window, opened my laptop, and looked at the current Pulsebridge dashboard. 432 hospitals, using it 19 countries, in pilot phase, and an average medical communication error reduction rate of 39.2%. The numbers were impressive, but nothing moved me more than the message from that same girl, Ems. "Olivia, I just got ASTEM scholarship to MIT. What major do you think I should choose if I want to come back and help improve the hospitals in my area?" I typed, slowly. "Choose what keeps you up at night. Because that's what will lead you to where you belong." People often ask me why I didn't try harder to prove myself sooner. Why I didn't write a book, appear in the media, or talk about all those sleepless nights. The answer is brutally simple: I didn't need to. Success isn't the applause from those who once dismissed you. Success is the moment you no longer need their applause, but still move forward, still build something meaningful, still live by a vision no one else can dictate. I once wanted to prove them wrong. Now I just want to prove I was right to believe in myself. And that, for me, is enough. Once seen as someone wasting her potential, Olivia Mitchell quietly built a digital healthcare platform that's brought real change to hundreds of hospitals across the globe. Without chasing headlines, she chose a path of persistence, brilliance, and self-belief. Today, Olivia is more than a tech entrepreneur. She's an inspiration for the next generation, a living testament that true value doesn't come from outside recognition, but from what we faithfully create. What are your thoughts on Olivia's journey and how she overcame being underestimated to achieve real success? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful and moving family stories.